Clark.
Thank you, Chris, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending tonight's pre-town meeting for the upcoming annual town meeting to be held on Tuesday, May 7th. So we do have a warrant that was mailed to you. I hope you all have it. There are 22 warrant questions on the annual town meeting warrant, 3 of which are related to some bylaw changes. So we're here to answer any questions you may have in advance of May 7th. We're all ears, so we'll open it up to anyone that has a question regarding any of the warrant articles. Do we have any questions?
Joe Shinet, Precinct 1. I look at all of the financials, okay, and I have a whole bunch of questions, and I know they all have answers, okay, but my point is, if I had the detail before the warrant was published, I could ask the questions, because to ask all the questions that I have at town meeting, or even at this meeting, okay, it's kind of laborious, okay? And a lot of the questions I have is because I don't have the detail, okay? Like I see salary increases, okay, that exceed 10%, even some of them are 15%. And if I don't know if those are just cost of living, if they're incremental, okay, if they're part of contracts, okay? And I just wind up with a whole bunch of questions. And, I mean, I read every page, every line, okay, and I got a bunch of questions, but I know that if I bring it to the floor of town meeting and I ask for an amendment, we're going to be there for months. I mean, it's the wrong venue. Okay, so how do I get this kind of detail, okay, so I can go to the individual department heads, okay, to get the explanation for the information that I don't know?
So, Joe, there is a process. The detail you are seeking is contained in this 3-ring binder that is provided to each and every Finance Committee member for their review. And it is, those meetings are televised. You are welcome to those meetings to participate and ask any questions that you may have. I'd be happy to answer any questions or happy to provide this to you prior to town meeting.
I'm not asking to go to the Finance Committee meetings. I'm just asking for this information, okay, a little bit sooner.
So we're doing nothing different that has been done over the past 30 years. That detail does exist. It exists. It's submitted by each department head in preparation of their review.
I've already talked to those 2 guys, okay?
So we have rosters, we have level of details that can be requested, that could be reviewed upon request. So if it's something that you wanted to take a look at, we could have had this discussion a month ago, but
I didn't have this information a month ago unless I went to the Finance Committee and all. So I called Glenn this morning and said, hey, you're asking for another 30 grand for an ambulance. Ambulances are near and dear to my heart, okay? I'm saying, what's this 30 grand? He had all of the detail, okay? And the detail wasn't in here other than 30 grand. Okay, so the background for that, it was probably at the Finance Committee and other committees, okay? And to be honest with you, I don't have that kind of time.
so I guess our obligation under the charter is to provide this to you at an annual town meeting is a week in advance. We try to get it out 2 to 3 weeks in advance to give you an opportunity to review it and maybe call and ask any questions. We're here, we'll take a phone call over that 2-week period to answer any questions that you may have.
And I did that today and other times, okay, looking for departmental, what are you asking for? Only because, not that I'm challenging the numbers, because I don't know the detail, okay? So if there was more detail in the document, it might be easier for me and some of the other town meeting members, because I don't look forward to the part, okay, next week, okay, where we're sitting there, okay, and somebody comes up to the mic and says, I don't understand this, like, and they go for an amendment, and it goes on and on and on, okay? You don't need that, I don't need that.
Joe, I can tell you, we do post our presentation, our budget detail on our website. That's available for your review.
I review it.
In advance of you getting the warrant, that information is already out there. I understand not to the level that you would like to see, but I can tell you that our Finance Committee combs through that. They ask questions of the department. Those meetings are scheduled weeks in advance, and it's available for you to participate if you wanted to do it.
Well, the major items that I had questions on, okay, I reached out to the department's heads and got my clarifications, okay, just so that I won't ask for amendments or look stupid up at the microphone asking questions on town meeting night. Thank you.
Maureen?
Hi, Doreen Goodrich, Precinct 3. So I always worry about zoning articles being number one at the end of town meeting because people don't pay attention to it. They're long. I'm quite sure I support them, but I just was hoping that we could have a quick 411 on what they actually do. I think our goal is to have more affordable housing, have in-law apartments or, multi-use attachments so that, whether it's a senior wanting to rent out an apartment so they can stay in their house longer. So if you can just, because it's difficult, two things, to hear these at the end of town meeting, and I want to know the importance of it, what it does, and like a cheat sheet, like this is what it does, because I'm not afraid to stand up at town meeting, you know that, if it's something that we need and we need support for, but I also want to be able to support it in simple words. So Article 22, I think 21 is pretty self-explanatory. Just when they're zoning, instead of requiring 2 parking spaces, it's 1.5. So I know you don't split cars, but it all works out in the wash. But if you could give me a quick 411 on these.
Sure, there's 3 zoning articles are being proposed. Article 20 is a typo correction from last fall for the floodplain district. Just some verbiage was inadvertently neglected to be copied, so this is just correcting some language. The parking proposed from 2 to 1.5 is to help us comply with the MBTA community requirements to kind of boost density. And I can explain that. You're right, we're not going to cut parking spaces in half. It will basically be rounding up. So if you have a 2-dwelling, a duplex, there'll be 3 parking spaces required. If there's 3, that comes out to 4.5, so we'd want to see 5 parking spaces. So it's just a rounding method to get around the half a space. And Article 22 is to try to help the residents make it a little easier to build accessory apartments. Currently, you can only have an accessory apartment that's attached to the primary residence. So if you have a detached garage, there's been instances in the past where people have gone to great lengths to attach the house to a detached garage. It's cost prohibitive to do that sometimes, so we're trying to allow them to be detached and allow, in certain instances, a larger apartment. So it's to try to make it a little easier for people to have accessory apartments because it seems to be becoming more and more common with the housing crisis.
So are there any restrictions on who can live in these? I know, like, I'm thinking back at the tiny homes, which I don't think we have any, but I think it was a mistake to just say it can only be family members who live there. I think that's a bad restriction. I voted for it. In retrospect, I wish I hadn't. The restrictions, so I'm just wondering if there are restrictions on this.
There's no restrictions like that, no. It can be rented out as long as the owner of the property is living in either the accessory or the main residence.
Okay, and my last set of questions. Did this originate from the zoning bylaw review committee, which is what, 3 or 4 members?
The accessory apartment, yes, it did.
And then
The other 2
did
came
it
from
go
me.
to planning and zoning for review, or it's just going to town meeting?
The planning board did review it a month ago now, almost a month ago now, and they did vote to recommend approval of all three. I believe the selectmen taken stance on these? Or they just defer?
They defer to the
They defer.
petition.
Right, right, which always concerns me because it's at the end of town meeting, and I know that we're trying to get more affordable units in Auburn, which would consist of these accessory apartments, so speak in favor of it. Thank you.
Do you have anyone else that has a question? Ms. Goodrich?
Since the superintendent's here, do we have any concerns with the McKinney-Vento funding? Or are we current with that for transportation? Okay. Okay, so it's not affecting your budget right now? Okay, good, thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no hands, I want to thank you for coming and look forward to seeing you on May 7th at 6 o'clock, I believe, is the start time. So we look forward to your participation at the town meeting. And if you should have any questions between now and then, feel free to call, feel free to reach out. We're here to help you out or answer any questions in advance of town meeting. So once again, thank you for coming.